Please be seated. Chairman Davidson, President Wilson, other members of the Board of Trustees, alumni, faculty, staff, students, and other guests. We are pleased to welcome you to the 148th Annual Founders Day Convocation, a celebration that commemorates the birth and rich heritage of Morehouse College. As I call Lawrence E. Carter Sr., Dean of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel, up to offer the traditional Founders Day call to order and evocation, I would like to remind you all to silence your electronic devices. The Founders Day proceedings will then follow as printed in your program, and I ask all those taking part in today's program to take your place at the appropriate time in the program.
Please rise. I now invite the 23rd pastor of Old Silver Bluff Springfield Baptist Church of Augusta, Georgia, the Reverend Hardy Spurgeon Bennings III, to light our candle of the mystique. Morehouse was founded there 148 years ago, February the 14th. Let us pray. Gracious and most infinite Spirit, we stand this morning on the horizon of history and the threshold of the world of our dreams, expecting to see things that we couldn't see before. Endow us with more creative energy, universal compassion, personal power, strategic wisdom, and the eagerness to participate in an exciting developmental opportunity. We stand, precious Lord, for nearly a century and a half as a character-building college, seeking to chart a new course on an ancient foundation of spirituality, justice, nonviolence, and social awareness. Sustain our institutional leadership, Eternal Spirit, with all things necessary for our relevant transformation. Grant our faculty all things essential to teach exceptionally smart men. Inspire our young scholars with the discipline required for actualizing integrity and the courage to demonstrate that words are foretelling the truth. Knowing, dear God, in the golden moments of now, that we are accepted without condition, loved beyond measure, and imbued with the luminosity of the entire universe, we take bold steps to free ourselves from the chains that shackle us to self-condemnation and declare our oneness with you to set ourselves free. So be it, and so it is. Let everyone say, amen.
All who are able, stay standing for the presentation of colors, the singing of the national anthem, and one stanza of Lift Every Voice and Sing. You may be seated. Founders Day is one of the most significant events of the academic year. It is a time to celebrate our founders' deliberate and measured response to the need for Black men to be educated. Founders Day is a remembrance of the college's past, its struggles and its strivings, and an opportunity to commemorate our extraordinary successes. This year marks the 148th year of the founding of an institution that began as Augusta Theological Institute. In 1879, called the Basement of Friendship Baptist Church home, and in 1885 moved to our current campus to eventually become Morehouse College. As we reflect on this special occasion, we understand that the purposes for which we were founded are enduring, and that our mission to develop men with disciplined minds for leadership and service is as greatly needed now as it was then. Our rich and storied history and the power and value of Morehouse College is best understood by recognizing the larger context in which we have always operated. Whether in 1867 educating former slaves in the South still angry over the Civil War, or in the aftermath of the 1906 Atlanta race riot, or through the college's first 100 years as Jim Crow reigned. It is against this reality that Morehouse has triumphed in helping to develop outstanding men. One of the great testaments to this ideal is, of course, one of our most illustrious alumni, Martin Luther King Jr., graduate of the class of 1948. King went on to receive the Nobel Peace Prize in December of 1964 and to help secure the Voting Rights Act of 1965. As we commemorate the occasion of the 148th anniversary of the founding of Morehouse College, we see our students modeling King and the lessons he learned here in the context of new threats against our young African-American men. Unfortunately, we are reminded that there is much work to be done now more than ever. And what we know is that Morehouse was founded in and for times like these. We are needed now more than ever. This is the occasion of our 148th Founders Day observances today. It is my honor to recognize members of the platform and the many special guests with us here today. Let me apologize in advance for any omissions. Board of Trustees, please stand to be recognized, including Chairman Robert Davidson, faculty representatives Michael Hodge, Keith Howard, and David Wall-Rice, student representatives Michael Gatewood, Zephyrinus Okonkwo, and O'Shea Johnson. Will the senior administrators of the college please stand to be recognized, including Ms. Lucretia Cade, General Counsel, Ms. Karen Miller, Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Alan Robertson, Chief Financial Officer, and Dr. Tim Sams, Vice President for Student Development. Would all Morehouse faculty and staff please stand and be recognized? Would all alumni of Morehouse College please stand and be recognized? Our First Lady of the college, Dr. Carol Espy Wilson, please stand and be recognized. Would Janester Nix Miller, President Wilson's mother, stand and be recognized? Would immediate past President, Dr. Robert Michael Franklin, please stand to be recognized. Dr. Edward Wimberly, Acting President of ITC, please stand and be recognized. Dr. Stanley Pritchett, President of Morris Brown, please stand and be recognized. And if there are any other current or former college presidents present today, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. Ms. Loretta Parham, Executive Director of the Robert Woodruff Library, please stand and be recognized. Mrs. Yvonne Gloucester, wife of the late Hugh Gloucester, 7th President of Morehouse College, would you please stand and be recognized? Mrs. Faye Davidson, wife of Chairman Davidson, would you please stand and be recognized? Dr. June Gary Hops, wife of late Provost Dr. John Hops Jr., please stand and be recognized. and honorees of our Candle in the Dark Gala, please stand and be recognized. I now would like to recognize Miss Maroon and White and her court. If they are here today, please stand and be recognized. Thank you. Men of the freshman class of 2018, would you stand and be recognized? And last, but certainly not least, with all those preparing to cross the stage in May, the men of the senior class of 2015, please stand and be recognized. I would like to now invite Chairman Robert Davidson to bring us greetings from the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Provost Campbell. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct pleasure to bring you greetings on behalf of the Morehouse College Board of Trustees and welcome you to the 148th celebration of the founding of Morehouse College. Morehouse College has continued to endeavor on educating young men for lives of leadership and service under the guidance of the best educators in this country. Please give them a hand. As I scan the nearly century and one-half history of Morehouse College, I see a series of persons endowed with great insight and wisdom that have shaped this institution into what it is today. A college that has produced world-class leaders in every field of endeavor. A college that has ignited social consciousness of America. A college that continues to fulfill the needs, both big and small, of its immediate community and the world. The Morehouse pedagogical tradition is defined by its iconic teachers, leaders, and students. Benjamin Brawley, Benjamin E. Mays, Howard Thurman, Martin Luther King Jr., and all of our former Morehouse College presidents, all who were once great teachers prior to assuming the presidency. As I look into the audience today, I see teachers, administrators, and staff who embrace the proud tradition of excellence and carry out the torch of our first Dean of Men, Benjamin Brawley, to teach standards of art and culture. The torch of Thurman's sound of the genuine, so that our students may discover and remain authentic in their purpose. The torch of Martin Luther King Jr., such that ethics, character, and social justice are embedded in every lesson, in every discipline. And I hear each professor as they subtly evoke the crown that our former president, Benjamin Elijah Mays, said hangs over the heads of men of Morehouse by having high expectations of students for them to aspire and achieve. I see a future world where students seated here and those who come after will model and replace the Morehouse reputation throughout the world. May the world always have Morehouse men. May the world, that's okay. May the world always have Morehouse men who will be grounded in these traditional and historic teachings, will break new ground, establish new paradigms, challenge the status quo, and stand their ground. Stand your ground, young men, for the education and training of Morehouse College has prepared you well. In closing, on behalf of the Morehouse College Board of Trustees, we thank you, President Wilson and Provost Campbell, for your leadership. We seldom, on these special occasions, remember to thank you to all of our current administrators, faculty, and staff for keeping the proverbial home fires burning here at Morehouse. Thank you for all you do for Morehouse College. And to all of you gathered here today in the audience and watching in the cyberspace, I wish you a happy Founders Day. I'm also pleased today to perform a time-honored duty that has traditionally been privileged for our treasured trustee emeritus, Dr. Otis Moss, Jr., who served at the helm of the board for many years. Dr. Moss could not be here today, so I will present the winners of the 2015 Otis Moss, Jr. Oratorical Contest in his stead. Oratory and debate have been a favorite activity at Morehouse College since the school's early days in Augusta, Georgia. In an effort to maintain that tradition, Dr. Moss, a much revered minister and national acclaimed orator, formally instituted this contest in 1999. No other name is more fitting to be linked with the ongoing oratorical tradition of Morehouse College than that of Dr. Moss. Besides his own expressed interest in the continuance of the tradition at Morehouse College, he continues to captivate large audiences, leaving them breathless and inspired. Morehouse College is honored to have the name of Otis Moss, Jr. linked with its oratorical contest. Two faculty members, Dr. Leah Criquet, Associate Professor of English, and Dr. Felicia Stewart, Associate Professor of Communication, have provided leadership and coordination on this contest. I invite them to the stage today to assist me and President Wilson in awarding the prizes.
Thank you, Chairman Davidson. This year's contest prompt was entitled Orations of the Zeitgeist, and students were asked to speak their truth about the spirit of our times. All contestants offered profound and stirring oratory to confirm that the art of oratory is alive and well and is in the DNA of Morehouse College. As I call the names of the recipients, would you come forward and receive your awards and prizes? Gentlemen, would you line up and come up the stairs? Honorable mention, Mr. Darnell A. Williamson, Jr., class of 2015. Come forward, please. Honorable mention, Mr. Ivan Gaskin, class of 2016. Fourth place, Mr. John Alexander Watford, class of 2015. Third place, Mr. Duran Marble, class of 2018. Second place, Mr. Clayton LeBron Mason III, class of 2016. And the first place winner, Mr. Shaquille Moore, class of 2016. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
This river that runs through my life will never be uncrossable. This river that washes the shores from sea to sea. This river that calls my name on both shores just the same. This river shall never be uncrossable for me. This river that runs through my life will never be uncrossable. This river that washes the shores from sea to sea. This river that calls my name on both shores just the same. This river shall never be uncrossable for me.
This river that runs through my life is a lifeline for me. This river that runs through my life is where I'll always be.
This river shall never be uncrossable for me.
These shores on which I stand apart shall never be unreachable. These shores that give me back my heart and write my future sure.
Shall never divide my love or keep me from the above. This river shall never be uncrossable for me.
This river that runs through my life is a lifeline for me.
This river that runs through my life, this river, where I'll always be. This river shall never be uncrossable for me. For me.
That's the Morehouse College Glee Club. Amen to this river. Before getting to the highlight of this ceremony, one of the joys, one of the beauties of attending Morehouse College is that you are constantly exposed to men you ought to want to be like. And there are two such men here today. I saw him stand earlier, but I want to acknowledge again Dr. David Satcher, former Surgeon General for these United States, and of course, former president of the Morehouse School of Medicine. There's another man here who will be honored the rest of the weekend. He is in the house. Not only young men of Morehouse, do you want to be like Dr. David Satcher, but you also want to be like this brother who will be honored, especially on Saturday night. He is one of the honorees who is here with us, and his name is Dr. Paul Judge. Paul, I want you to stand because you all need to be like him too. All right? All right, Paul Judge. And young brothers, if you don't know about him, you're going to find out this weekend, and you need to really take a look at what he has done since his days, sitting right where you sit right now. This morning I have the distinct honor to introduce our speaker for today, the Reverend Dr. Cornel West, who is so well known throughout America and the world that he does not really need an introduction. What is remarkable about Dr. West is that he is known among his contemporaries who came of age with him as initiates to an awareness of black consciousness during the 70s at the height of the black cultural movement. At that time, the young Cornel West was a politically astute student leader at Harvard College who excelled in his studies while successfully demanding that Harvard divest of its stock in apartheid South Africa. After graduating magna cum laude from Harvard in just 3 years, Cornel West went on to study philosophy at Princeton University, where he attained an MA and a PhD. He ultimately made his intellectual home as a professor of philosophy and Christian practice at Union Theological Seminary. He has taught throughout the world in some of the most prestigious universities, Harvard, Yale, Paris, and Princeton. And I don't think at any of those places will he hear the song "This River" sung before he stands up. Just saying. He has published 20 books and edited another 13. He is well known to the youth of today who have interacted with his theories of race and justice in books, filmed, recordings, and on the World Wide Web. He is a brilliant communicator who speaks in the complex language of structuralism, deconstruction, and hermeneutics. He also speaks in the nuanced language of funk and its derivative, rap and hip-hop. His works, Race Matters and Democracy Matters, are widely consumed in classrooms across the country. His visionary and prophetic voice is enjoyed by many on the airwaves of radio and television, as well as in lectures and guest appearances. His recent works, Black Prophetic Power and Radical King, call us to recognize the power of our black intellectual heritage and tradition. As you all know, these are serious times, and we must remain vigilant, prepared, and mindful that Morehouse College shall be a more recognized epicenter of the change that must come about. West reminds us that our most famous alumnus, Martin Luther King Jr., was not just an iconic hero, he was a warrior of radical Christian and democratic thought. It is most fitting that Cornel West is with us today as an interpreter of King's dream at King's alma mater at this Founders Day observance. Before I bring him on, I want you to know that I will always be personally grateful to Dr. West for mentoring my younger brother, Lucas Wilson, a 1981 graduate of Morehouse. He came out of Morehouse, and Dr. West shepherded him to his PhD, to and through his PhD at UMass Amherst. And my brother, thanks in part to Dr. West, is now a tenured professor of economics and Afro-American studies at Mount Holyoke. And I thank Dr. West for his hand in making that possible. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome now, and let's give a Morehouse welcome, to Dr. Cornel West.
What a blessing for me to be here. What an honor, what a privilege. Morehouse College. Oh, my God, my God. Oh, yes. I shake and tremble, I quiver, I shiver when I'm at Morehouse College. I know this place has been consecrated. Whole lot of love, lot of sacrifice, lot of suffering, but aspiring to high standards. Is that right, Morehouse? Am I in the right place? Then you pray for me. Oh, I want to salute first the captain of the ship. Oh, he's a caretaker. He's the 11th president of Morehouse. He's my very dear brother, John Sylvanus Wilson again. And when you're blessed to have your beloved mother in the house. Oh, mothers are special, you are. Indeed. Let us give it up for his beloved mother. So much grace, so much elegance. Look at her, look at her. My God, my God. Oh, yes. And she's sitting next to the first black woman to get a PhD in electrical engineering in the history of America, Dr. Professor Carol S.B. Wilson. She's in the house too. Oh, we love both of you. We love both of you. Yes, we do. Oh, that's what Morehouse is about. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Because I don't know about you, but I am who I am because somebody loved me. Somebody cared for me. Somebody attended to me. And I will never have a title greater than being the second son of the late Clifton and the living Irene B. West. If I could be one half of the human being that my father was and my mother is, I would not have lived in vain. Oh, yes. And to come out of Shiloh Baptist Church on the chocolate side of Sacramento, California, under Reverend Willie P. Cook. And in those days, we had pastors. We didn't have CEOs. Oh, yeah. He took care of the building fund so that the prison ministry was expansive. We didn't have mega churches. We had mega love. We had mega courage because we had washed in the blood, and the blood was not Kool-Aid, that thin stuff. It was that thick stuff that'll turn you around and straighten you up. Brother Martin used to say, anytime folk straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent. Straighten up. We had a brother on the organ named Sylvester Stewart every fifth Sunday in the Northern California Mass Choir. He's known to the world as Sly Stone, and he wrote a song back then that said, stand, you've been sitting much too long. There's a permanent crease in your right and wrong. Stand, there's a midget standing tall, and the giant beside him about to fall. Stand, and I say this especially to the priceless young brothers at Morehouse. There's a cross for you to bear, things to go through if you going anywhere. And never forget that moment when Brother Martin Luther King Jr. is in that paddy wagon for 4.5 hours, the same amount of time that our brother Michael Brown's body was there in Ferguson, St. Louis, with the blood flowing. But Martin King was in that paddy wagon with a German shepherd in the dark. Just he and the German shepherd. My dear brother Andy Young has told me on a number of occasions it was he and Daddy King who was there at Reedsville Prison in Tatnall County, Gut Bucket, Jim Crow, Georgia, waiting to see how Martin would emerge. And when he emerged, it looked as if he had had a kind of nervous breakdown. He could hardly walk, and all he could say was, "This is the cross we must bear for the freedom of our people." That's Morehouse at its best. Love of truth, and the condition of truth is always to allow suffering to speak. And anybody that talks about truth telling and doesn't begin with the suffering, doesn't begin with the orphan and the widow, doesn't begin with the fatherless and the motherless, doesn't begin with the poor, doesn't begin with the prisoner, doesn't begin with the worker, doesn't begin with the elderly, doesn't begin with the children, then you can rest be assured they're engaged in a deodorized discourse. And I come from a people who've been terrorized for 400 years, stigmatized for 400 years, traumatized for 400 years, and we at our best like to keep it funky. We suspicious of deodorized discourses. I was blessed to write a song by a genius named Bootsy Collins. He's a funk master because he understands that fundamental question, what does it mean to be human? That Latin humanda, which means burial, or beings toward death. What does it mean to be a featherless, two-legged, linguistically conscious creature born between urine and feces? That's who we are. And if it wasn't for that love push in our mama's womb, we wouldn't be here. And there's a lot of funk in that womb. There's a lot of blood in that womb. There's a lot of love in that womb. There's a lot of pain in that womb. And the history of Morehouse, Benjamin Elijah Mays, you just be silent when you hear the name. Was blessed to meet him at Payne College. I got down on my knees and said, "Brother, you don't know the impact you've had on my life." Howard Thurman. We don't have a language to keep track of his philosophical subtlety. But he always kept love at the center of it because he knew in the end all of the talk of title, all of the talk of status and wealth was just sounding brass and tinkling cymbal if love was not at the center of it. And love is not some mamby-pamby feeling. It's a fundamental commitment to a steadfast commitment to the well-being of others. Oh, yes, and our living legend, Reverend Dr. Lawrence Edward Carter. Oh, my God. My God. 36 years and still strong. It's what the Isley brothers call a caravan of love. That's what the black freedom struggle is. The gentle genius from the west side of Chicago named Curtis Mayfield. And people get ready. We're talking about that love train. Morehouse brothers. Stay on the love train. But if you're going to love truth, you're going to have your armor in place. The last thing we need is highly successful Negroes who are well adjusted to injustice. That's the last thing we need. Well adapted to indifference. Parading around talking about their success. And the question is, we're glad you're successful, but what are you faithful to? How you going to use your success in such a way that you put a smile on the face of Benjamin Brawley? How you going to use it in such a way that you put a smile on the face of Malcolm X? Now, Malcolm X never went to Morehouse, but much of the Morehouse tradition went through Malcolm. Because Malcolm was full of a whole lot of love. He was a truth teller about black people, not just in terms of what was coming at us, but in terms of our fight back, Oh, yes. Morehouse always has been able to deal with the specificity of coming out of this institution, but embracing all the different voices and viewpoints, all the different Weltanschauung showers and world views of others who are fundamentally committed to telling the truth and bearing witness. So I want to begin with an epigraph. That was just my prologue, you know. No, you come to Morehouse, you on fire. I mean, Brother Franklin, you know what I'm talking about. I first saw this brother at Harvard. He was already on fire. That's 30 years ago. Isn't that something? God is good that we still breathing. Every day is a gift and every breath is a breakthrough. And for a black man in America to still be in our right minds most of the time is a major achievement. But the greatest public intellectual in the history of America was W.B. Du Bois. And in 1957, he put pen to paper. He was 89 years old, and he said, I want to write a love letter to the younger generation. It was as if he had the Ferguson moment on his mind. Du Bois, 89 years old, still struggling. He had just emerged with handcuffs out of a U.S. court. He was under house arrest. He had one visitor, another towering black man named Paul Robeson. They would meet every Thursday in Brooklyn, the greatest borough in the world. And they would say, how are we going to keep this great tradition of black people at our best? And I always say at our best because you just can't say black folk. We got gangsters and thugs too, you know, just like any other community. I'm talking about black folk at our best. Paul Robeson and Du Bois say, how are we going to keep it alive? There was another Morehouse brother who would show up every once in a while. His name was Benjamin Davis, Jr. Y'all know about Benjamin Davis? He was a communist, Morehouse man. Father, black family, black royalty. Took over after Adam Clayton Powell went to Congress. He was a city councilman from Harlem. He was sent to jail under the Smith Act. He stayed for 3 years and 4 months. He was reelected in jail. That's a Morehouse man, isn't it? Hey! Benjamin Davis, also Amherst, Harvard Law. Oh, my God. Morehouse, I love your variety and your diversity and your heterogeneity. Brother David Satchel in the house, my God, giant that he is. But Du Bois says, I need to write 3 novels. And it's about Mansart, the character. And you turn to page 275 of that first novel. And he says, I've been wrestling with 4 questions my whole life. What are they, the great Du Bois? The first question, how shall integrity face oppression? Oh, my priceless and precious Morehouse brothers. Keep track of these questions, not just in your trek through this grand institution, but in your move toward the death itself. That brief move from your mama's womb to tomb. When your body becomes a culinary delight of terrestrial worms. Right before they get you, keep track of these questions because they're the questions that has helped shape you and me by 4 mothers and 4 fathers. We come at our best from a people who aspire to integrity. They didn't always just want to win at any cost. They would rather lose with their integrity for the moment as opposed to winning and be gangsters and thugs like the white supremacists who had terrorized and gangsterized them. And I say this quite explicitly because we live in an age of cupidity, the love of money. Wu-Tang Clan is right. Cream still rules. Cash rules. But it's around me. It doesn't have to rule me. It's around me. Grandmothers and grandfathers, they aspire to integrity. I'm not talking about purity. I'm not talking about being pristine. I'm talking about the orientation of your will. I'm talking about your existential disposition. Keep track of integrity, even in an age of cupidity and an age of venality. What do you mean by venality, Brother West? Well, we live in an age of the sellout. There's too many folk just willing to sell their souls for a mess of pottage just to get over. No, there's something called integrity. And we all fall short. We're not talking about anybody who has a monopoly on it, but in the name of the best of those who came before. That's what Sankofa's about. Never forget the milestones and the touchstones and the landmarks. Remember that Martin King and the others are keeping track of you. But there's no Martin without Alberta Christine. There's no Martin without Daddy King. There's no Martin without Christine. There's no Martin without A.D. Alfred Daniel. Sly Stone is right. It's a family affair. Nobody in it all by themselves. No isolated individual on a pedestal. No, we're waves in an ocean. And what Du Bois was trying to say is, will the next generations, as they move more and more into a mainstream of America, that wonderful line in The Souls of Black Folk he wrote in 1903, when he said, America's a land of smartness and dollars. And you would think he's talking about Silicon Valley. And you can hear Du Bois saying, let the phones be smart, you be wise. The last thing we need is just smart Negroes with no courage, no compassion, no connection, just real smart. Now, I'm not promoting stupidity, but we're talking about wisdom. Integrity has something to do with the ability to ground your soul in your R-O-O-T-S so that your R-O-U-T-E-S can move to every corner of the globe and you still have integrity. What I love about a Morehouse man is you should be able to go to White House, crack house, your mama's house, and still emerge with integrity. That's what I'm talking about. But you don't get that by yourself. You don't get it all alone. You got to be grounded in something bigger than you. The old folk used to call it piety. But piety has been reduced in our secular age to just uncritical acceptance of blind faith. No, piety is the sources of good in your life. What kind of injections in your life allow you to be the best that you are? You see, there is no John Coltrane without Johnny Hodges, Thelonious Monk, Miles Davis, Gene Hammonds, and others. Sources of good in his life. There's no John Coltrane without that black minister when he got to Philadelphia blowing his horn all day and they planned to kick him out of the projects. And it was a black minister that just knocked on the door and put the keys under the door and said, young John, you can come to my church and blow all day as much as you like. John Coltrane never forgot that. And if anybody has a right to claim that they are genius, capital G, it would be John Coltrane, Love Supreme. It would be John Coltrane, Giant Steps, Expressions, Impressions, Cosmic Music, and that Reverend King in Cosmic Music. Y'all check it out later on tonight. Integrity. Second question. What does honesty do in the face of deception? Then in our market culture, the dominant tendencies of American culture is to unleash massive weapons of distraction. To keep folk, especially young folk, distracted from what really matters. I salute the faculty that understands the difference between deep education and cheap schooling. Morehouse is not about cheap schooling. It's not just about getting some skill and not having your soul unsettled and unearthed and unhoused in such a way that you got to raise a fundamental question about who you are as a human being and in connection to your family and community and tradition. No, deep education, what the Greeks call paideia, P-A-I-D-E-I-A, that formation of attention where you shift from the superficial things to the substantial things. You need to form your attention. Cheap school is just about information. Deep education is about transformation. You wasted somebody's money if you graduate after 4 years and you're roughly the same brother that you were when you're in it. I tell my students every year, and I've been blessed to have so many magnificent Morehouse graduates. Eddie Glaude, of course, not just my former student, he was my boss at Princeton, had an Afro-American study. Toby Sanders, I've taught in prisons for 37 years, and he's my boss of the STEP program. He and I teach in Rahway State Prison. He's a distinguished graduate of Morehouse. Jonathan Walton, distinguished professor now at Harvard. He was one student. He's now my teacher. Bill Howard. I could go on and on. Of course, Calvin Butts. My God, my God. Be seeing that brother on Tuesday. We put pressure on the mayor, who says he's progressive, but we want him to be progressive every day of the week, not just on Wednesdays and Fridays. But deep education, my brothers, is about learning how to die so that you can learn how to live well. You must muster the courage to critically examine the set of assumptions and presuppositions that you have, and when you give up some of those assumptions, that's a form of death. And there is no education without learning how to die, just as there is no rebirth without death. There's no maturation without death. The Christian New Testament says what? Christians must die daily. The egoistic, cowardly, conformist, complacent self must be murdered daily for a critical, compassionate, courageous self to emerge. And it's a perennial battle, that civil war that takes place on the battlefield of each of our souls, but also on our societies as a whole. And let us be very honest about it, that in the last 30 years we've seen not just a war on poor and working people. In the new Jim Crow that our dear sister Michelle Alexander talks about with such insight, it's just the peak of an iceberg. But there's been a cultural and a spiritual war on young people, because the end and aim is to ensure that young folk don't have access to the deep riches of the tradition. And we can just see it in the music. You see, I grew up not just listening to James Cleveland and Shirley Caesar, but I listened to the Dramatics and the Delphonics and Enchantment and the Whispers, the Mighty Dells, the Jones Girls, Emotions. In those days, black folk sang together in tune, harmonizing, listening to each other and responding, raising their voices and not just being echoed for the market. Oh, yes. They're not just entertainers. See, Drell Levert and Glenn Jones, not just entertainers. They are masters of their craft and their technique. Nat King Cole and Sarah Vaughan and Billy Eckstine were not just entertainers, they were masters of their technique. They were soul stirrers, the very group that generated Sam Cooke and Johnny Taylor and Lou Rawls. What were they doing? They were stirring your soul in such a way that they're trying to kill your cowardice and kill your sense of not believing in yourself and respecting yourself and allowing yourself to be free when you immerse yourself in their music. Oh, yes. How many groups now sang with the harmonies of the Marvelettes or the Temptations? How many bands even play together? We know in our public schools they've done away with the arts program so the young folk can't play the instruments. No wonder they got to depend on those computers. And the computers cannot get to drum a song like Clyde Stubblefield and James Brown's band. He can't do it. There's something happening in terms of the spiritual impoverishment of our young people. And we have to be honest about it. And it's not just targeting black folk, but believe me, you. When our music gets thin and impoverished, you can rest be assured that our souls are thin and impoverished. I couldn't even watch the Grammys the other day. I couldn't do it. There's just too much like the National Hockey League for me. I can't take it. Sam Smith is all right, but Hall & Oates was all right, but Hall & Oates gets down on their knees when they hear the Delphonics. And so did the average white band when James Brown walked in the room. And so did the Righteous Brothers when Sam and Dave walked in the room. These are just not entertainers. These are love warriors trying to keep alive deep sense of soul, courage, vision. And the younger generation with the oligarchs at the top who control radio, recording, video, and live performance. No bands, no groups singing together, no voices blending in harmony, just individuals out there trying to get over. And we still got genius. Jay-Z's a genius, ain't no doubt about that. Kanye's a genius most of the time. And Beyonce is the greatest entertainer of her generation. But Beyonce ain't no Aretha. If you want to hear Precious Lord, listen to Mahalia Jackson. We appreciate the effort. But we come from a people with high standards. High standards. And it takes tremendous work and discipline to have those standards. They don't fall out of heaven. And that's true intellectually, it's true scientifically, it's true practically, it's true rhetorically, it's true artistically. And I want to say to young folk, when Du Bois says, what will honesty do in the face of deception? You keep in mind the last line of James Baldwin's Notes of a Native Son when he says, all I want to be is a writer and an honest man. And we live in a culture where even the aspiration to integrity and honesty makes you countercultural. Because everybody's more obsessed with the 11th commandment, thou shalt not get caught. Just get over by any means. Get your money, get your status, get your position. You see? Well, it doesn't look like you're too concerned with the standards. Standards are no longer have weight or gravity. I got my cash. So what happens to the next generation? What happens to the next wave of serious folk? Third question of Du Bois. You're all so patient. I'm going to bring it to a close. What does decency do in the face of insult? But you can't talk about America without talking about the wave of insults and assaults and attacks on black folk, direct and indirect. You have to be honest about it. This is true, of course, for our gay brothers and lesbian sisters. This is true for our working peoples. And it's all we've always had, struggles with hatred against our Jewish brothers and sisters, just like we got hatred against our Arab Muslims in our society today. You see. But decency in the face of insult. How do you keep track of both the wound, the scar, and the bruise produced by the insult, but not become so obsessed with your wounds that you lose sight of your fight back? Crucial. Believe in yourself. Respect yourself. Never question your ability to ascend to the highest levels relative to your cultivated talents. That's the message of Benjamin Mays every week between 1940 and 1967. 27 years of that kind of high-quality pedagogy. And the last question Du Bois raises, how does virtue meet brute force? And this is something we do not like to talk about in America. The degree to which terrorism, American terrorism, has been an intimate companion for black people. Raw violence. 244 years of white supremacist slavery, social death. 89 years of American terrorism, Jim and Jane Crow Senior, civic death. We living in the age of Jim Crow Junior. It's not over. Residential segregation, educational segregation, cultural segregation, and the prison industrial complex. 1 out of 3 of our precious brothers in Chocolate City is either on probation, parole, or in prison. And where's the focus? Where's the moral outrage? Du Bois, do we have what it takes to muster the courage to aspire to integrity, honesty, decency, and virtue in our own ways? I'm not talking about one model. I know a lot of people, anytime they mention my name now, they think, oh, Brother West, you're so hard on the president. Now, I love the president. We've got our lanes. We've got our callings. He's brilliant. He's charismatic. He got a unique smile. He's up against hell and high water. From the right wing, from Fox News, no doubt. But then some of us have a calling that says we'll attempt to tell the truth and bear witness across the board no matter what other people's calling is too. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of engagement. I know Brother Eric Holder's going to be here later on. I want to give the brother a hug, but I got one question for my brother. I said, oh, these black brothers and black sisters and brown brothers and black sisters and brown sisters been getting shot every 28 hours for 7 years. And we got a black president, black attorney general, black homeland security, and not one federal prosecution of a policeman. What's the problem? What's the problem? What's going on? That's a Key Sweat moment. Something just ain't right. Now, I can say that and still love Eric Holder. You know why? Because Eric Holder is here because he is still concerned in his own way for young black brothers. That's why I'm here. That's why he's the president. That's why he was president. We don't agree on everything. That's all right. That's all right. We got love for the brothers. And everybody loves in their own way. And sometimes you got to love Negroes from a distance. Hey. Sometimes you got to love them from a distance. That's all right. Malcolm X called Martin Luther King Jr. a chump. He was wrong. He apologized. But he meant it when he said it. Because he was a sincere, Allah-loving, free black man in Malcolm. You remember he called Martin a chump? He said, you don't use those children in Birmingham against those vicious gangsters. You don't use precious children in that way. And anybody who does that is a chump. Brother Alexander Hamilton knows it. The sixth knows what I'm talking about. Martin said, dang, Malcolm, isn't that a little exaggerated language? I've been to jail 32 times. How many times you been to jail other than being a gangster when you were Malcolm Little? I mean, Martin didn't say that. I said it, but Martin didn't say it. Martin's not that kind of brother. I'm a different kind of brother. I got more Richard Pryor than me than he did. You know what I mean? But what did Martin say when Malcolm was shot? He said, let us never forget his sweet spirit. Malcolm, sweet spirit, that's right. This is a note I want to end on, y'all. If you wrestle with Du Bois's 4 questions, wrestle in a context of a commitment to militant tenderness. All of the figures I talked about, from Mays to Carter, from Martin King to Malcolm, to Curtis Mayfield, they were tender brothers. And we live in an age when tenderness is pushed to the margins. You see, Otis Redding said, try a little tenderness. Too many of y'all say my name, say my name, say my name. Oh, that's a drop. That's a decline. My father was a tender man. My grandfather, Reverend C.L. West, Metropolitan Baptist Church on the chocolate side of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was a tender man. It was a militant tenderness that went with a toughness of mind, that went with a willingness to fight. He was always on the battlefield holding up the bloodstained banner, but always keep the tenderness there. Try to be true to the voice of a David Ruffin. Be true to the voice of a Nina Simone. There's tenderness there. Be true to the piano playing of a Mary Lou Williams or Art Tatum. Sophisticated, aggressive, but also tender. And that militant tenderness goes hand in hand with a subversive sweetness. We are witnessing the decline of sweetness in Black America. That Malcolm could be sweet and still be tough in his language. Last but not least, a radical gentleness. There will never be the kind of wave of black truth tellers and witness bearers and freedom fighters without a tenderness, a sweetness, and a gentleness rooted in a sense of the past, mustering the courage to think critically, to speak candidly, to act compassionately, and to be willing to sacrifice your popularity in the name of an integrity you're trying to aspire to. That's what we're about. Thank you all so very much. Morehouse, I salute you. Oh, how blessed you are to be on this consecrated space. Never forget those who came before, and keep the caravan of love strong.
Let's give him a Morehouse gratitude. Come on now. This is Morehouse. And we have some gifts for Dr. Cornel West. We have some gifts. I'm going to ask Chairman Davidson and Provost Campbell to come up and help me stand over here. I'm going to give you these gifts right here. Step back here and we'll get this picture together. Come on, Kai.
Oh, yes, here we go.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Let's please give Dr. West one more round, please. We will now sing the Morehouse College hymn. After the hymn, please remain seated while the platform party recesses, followed by the faculty and the senior class.